Hola a todos y todas. Mi nombre es Jaime Buchuk, soy médico psiquiatra y miembro de Procannt, Profesionales de la Salud por el Cannabis Terapéutico. En el marco de la difusión de conocimiento que realizamos desde la organización, hoy les traemos desde Argentina una entrevista con un gran científico israelí, el profesor Raphael Mechoulam. Quizás para muchos y muchas de ustedes, el profesor no precisa presentación, pero para aquellas personas que aún no lo conocen, podemos decir que es profesor en química médica y productos naturales de la Universidad Hebrea de Jerusalén, es doctor honoris causa por la Universidad Complutense de Madrid y es considerado pionero en la investigación de cannabinoide moderna por haber aislado y determinado la estructura y síntesis total del delta 9 tetrahidrocannabinol o THC, uno de los principales componentes de la planta. También coordinó y colaboró con equipos de investigación que hallaron los componentes del sistema endocannabinoide, nuestros propios cannabinoides y los receptores corporales. Además, hace 4 décadas viene realizando y colaborando con distintos ensayos clínicos para determinar la eficacia y seguridad del cannabis y sus derivados en distintas afecciones de la salud. Uno de los más relevantes fue en 1980, cuando, basados en una historia árabe medieval que refería cómo el hijo de un noble del califato de Bagdad que sufría de epilepsia fue tratado exitosamente con hashish, un derivado de la planta de cannabis. Entonces decidieron reproducir esto junto a la Universidad de San Pablo, Brasil, con científicos de dicha universidad, primero probándolo en animales, luego probándolo en personas y comprobando su eficacia y seguridad. Los resultados fueron un éxito, pero un éxito que fue silenciado por más de 30 años, hasta que distintos grupos de madres y padres empoderados, tomando estos hallazgos, lograron tratar exitosamente a sus hijos e hijas, trayendo otra vez a la luz estos conocimientos para sus familias y para toda la humanidad. Sin más presentación, con ustedes, el profesor Raphael Mechoulam.
Greetings, Professor. It's a great joy to be able to count with your presence. I can't explain how honored I feel and the whole organization for this opportunity.
It's my pleasure.
I would like to start with asking that cannabis has been of therapeutic utility in the history of humanity for different pathologies. And I would like to focus on a pandemic pathology of industrialized world, that is anxiety. We know that you and your team have been working on testing on the effectiveness of CBD and recently acid CBD. What can you tell us about it? What is the compared effectiveness of acid CBD? Is there clinical studies yet?
Well, I believe that most of the use of cannabidiol or cannabis that contains high levels of cannabidiol is actually used for anxiety. People that are sick, people that have problems, all of them have anxiety. If one can reduce the anxiety, then people feel better. So it's one of the main things that cannabis can do, and both CBD and THC affect anxiety, but THC affects anxiety only at very low doses. At high doses, it can cause anxiety. So it is not very interesting as an anti-anxiety drug. By contrast, cannabidiol is a much better anti-anxiety drug. It acts by several mechanisms. One of them is serotonin, a special one, serotonin 1A, and then is also about TRPV, which can cause anti-anxiety and so on, and it blocks it. So cannabidiol is an excellent drug, and it has been tested in animals, mostly in mice and in rats, has been tested as an anti-anxiety drug, and it shows very good activity. As a matter of fact, my colleagues, my friends in South America, in Sao Paulo, have done quite a bit of work on cannabidiol as an anti-anxiety drug, and it has shown in animals extremely good activity. So the same group, and we collaborated with them, but this is mostly clinical work. They tried cannabidiol in several clinical trials, not very large ones, but several clinical trials. They tried that in a public speaking test. I mean, people that have to give a lecture, a little bit anxious, not very anxious, but a little bit anxious. One gives them cannabidiol and their anxiety goes down. So there is something that definitely acts both in mice and in humans. In mice, the effects are seen by having a mouse or having mice go into a place where it cannot be seen in a dark place, or whether it can go around in the open and try to find something for itself. Now, usually the mice stay in the dark. They get out mostly at night. But if they are given cannabidiol, they get out of the dark place a little bit more than otherwise. Not all the time, but a little bit more. So cannabidiol is definitely a good anti-anxiety drug. And the fact that it's not toxic, it doesn't cause side effects, I believe that it can be used more than it's being used today. Unfortunately, for many reasons that are possibly mostly legal, cannabidiol is not used as an anti-anxiety drug. The only way legally one can use cannabidiol is for certain types of epilepsy, which is ridiculous because, okay, it's fine as an anti-epileptic drug, but even so, we did, again, in collaboration with my friends in Sao Paulo, we did anti-epileptic work in mice and then in humans, 1980, which is 40 years ago. And it took another 30, 35 years for cannabidiol to be accepted as an anti-epileptic drug. A larger trial was done and it showed that, yes, we were right. So chances are that you're a young person, wait for another 30 years, and you'll probably see cannabidiol as an anti-anxiety.
Yes, the times moves.
So now, recently, we did, and this is something you asked, you see, cannabidiol is not a plant product. The plant product is cannabidiolic acid. It is not stable, it breaks down into cannabidiol. So very few people looked at cannabidiolic acid because it's not stable. So we chemically stabilized it and made it more stable. And then it was possible to test it. And with my friends in England and my friends in Canada, we tested for several different things. The methyl ester of cannabidiolic acid. I mean, this is the stable form of cannabidiolic acid, and it is quite active. It was compared to cannabidiolic acid, the stable form with the non-stable, and it was even a better one. So chances are that it may become an anti-anxiety compound. Now, methyl ester, this stable cannabidiolic acid, is in the hands of a company. So chances are that they will go ahead and try it as an anti-anxiety drug because, okay, it may make money for them. So money is important, more important than anxiety, and therefore it possibly will be used in anxiety, possibly even before cannabidiol itself. But anyway, both compounds are active. The cannabidiolic acid has not been tested in humans, so we don't know. It has been tested only in animals. Cannabidiolic acid, cannabidiol, has been tested a little bit in humans. So chances are that it's okay. Chances are that it's not being toxic, having no side effects, that it will be used. Where do we go from here? I hope that somebody will do it. See, a clinical trial.
Yes, continue, please.
Clinical trial is very expensive, and a small lab like mine cannot possibly initiate a clinical trial. One needs money from governments or companies and so on. And so let's hope that one can try it.
And cannabis paradigm takes from industrial medicaments to the artisanal preparations.
Sorry, can you repeat that, but slowly? I didn't catch what you said.
Sorry. That cannabis paradigm is very, very wide, from industrialized compounds to craft-made extractions, especially with those tinctures, raw juicing, leaves cannabis that you can hear, macerated extractions, which will you say that it's more likely to extract acid cannabinoids?
Well, it depends on what you are trying to do. You're speaking of something that we called many years ago the entourage effect, meaning that cannabidiol or maybe THC, maybe the other compounds are better when they are extracted together with additional compounds and not as pure compounds. They act as pure compounds, and so they can be used as drugs. But the extracts very often are better than the pure compound. And this is entourage effect. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to do clinical work on entourage effect, because one sample from cannabis is not exactly like the second sample. So if somebody wants to do clinical work, this is almost impossible with mixtures. So people use the extract with high levels of CBD, low levels of THC, and that's fine. But what are the compounds that enhance the activity of CBD? Difficult to say. We don't know, and it will be very difficult to find out what are the best compounds in the entourage effect. There is a compound, a diterpene, which also acts on CB2, and so chances are that it helps CBD in its activity. Now, CBD acts through several mechanisms, and maybe, just maybe, one of the mechanisms is the CB2, and therefore a compound in the plant extract that acts on CB2, maybe it is the one that causes the entourage effect, but we don't know. Are you doing, do you have a group that works on cannabidiol or on cannabis?
Yes, well, we are a group of healthcare professionals that we are, in our practice, we are attending people that are using cannabis for improve their health. So we have a wide population of people using it, and what we are learning and things that we learn from publications, from you, of course, and the entourage effect, and from our observations, we set a secure parameter to go with this. And especially with this that you say, the entourage effect, and our observations in our clinic, what would you say, taking care that there's a lot of lack of research, what would you say that would be the best line of observational research to apply based on cultivated cannabis?
Well, there is no doubt that while we have quite a lot of chemical research and quite a lot of pharmacological research, clinical research is not there. We really need clinical research. If you can do clinical research with the physicians and so on, and good analytical practice, so you can extract more or less the same extracts from the cannabis that you have and test it in the clinic, but test it in modern ways. I mean, have people that get the cannabis and people do not get it, and so on, because clinical trials are really badly needed. And not only in anxiety, just almost everything. So if you can do clinical trials, it will be helping research go ahead. Do you have the facility with clinicians and so on to do clinical trials? Do you have the facility?
Yes, we are recording our observations in patients, and we are taking chromatographies. I don't know if it says in English the same, chromatographic analytics of the oil extractions that people uses to compare it. And we hope that soon we can have our first results on it, and we'll be pleased to make the Entourage social network worldwide with you, and let's make this easier and faster, and hope we don't have to wait 30 years more to keep improving these nature pharmacologies.
Well, I wish you success. I'll be delighted to read your paper and see how you're going ahead. My colleagues in Sao Paulo, we have been doing that for, as I said, 30 years. I started with a fellow, a good friend of mine called Carlini. Unfortunately, he's sick and doesn't work anymore. So I work with many others in Sao Paulo, and they have been doing extremely good work. And if you ever manage to get to Brazil, visit them.
Yes, best regards for Professor Carlini. We know he's struggling, and yes, we'll do, and we'll keep in touch.
Well, it was a nice meeting you, and if I can at any time ask me anything that I may or may not be able to answer. All the best.
Before you go, Professor, we have a little surprise for you. Could you stand with us 2 more minutes?
Yes, please.
Yeah, people of Argentina have prepared something for you. We believe that every now and often humanity needs someone to stand up for their rights. Isaac Newton, Galileo Galilei, Charles Darwin, Alice Ball, you are one of them, Professor. We just want to say you something. Let's see the video.
All the best.
We'll see the video right now.
Thank you, Raphael.
Le queremos mandar un beso y agradecer a Raphael Mechoulam.
Thank you, Rafa. Autocultivosa.
Gracias, Rafael.
Otro más, vamos. Vamos. Eso. Vamos, otro más. Vamos. Eso, otro más. Eso. Vamos.
Gracias, Rafael. Gracias.
Really, thank you, Professor.
Many thanks. I enjoyed your film. Gracias.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
You're deeply welcome. Bye-bye.
All the best.